Okay, welcome everyone. Tonight we're going to talk about the seven factors of enlightenment. We'll begin first by joining palms and bowing. Bow. The four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Okay. Um, it's kind of an interesting class today, a little bit a different approach. Some of you have already practiced or heard about the seven factors of enlightenment. I want to approach it from the uh, right viewpoint. This viewpoint is approaching it from that everything is created by the mind, thus everything belongs to mind. In the seven factors of enlightenment, they show up in the Nikayas and what the Mahayanas refer to as the Agamas, and they are guideposts for the practice to achieve enlightenment. From the viewpoint of Mahayana Chan in right view, it's a little bit different approach. And this is something that you may or may not understand, but I wanted to try to approach it in this way by using a modern day analogy of the difference between Batman and Superman. And in Batman wants to be a superhero. He tries, and he has a utility belt. He has things we can shoot, hooks and whatever. He has a Batmobile, a bat motorcycle, everything, a bat cave, and he dresses up like a superhero. But if you shot him, he would be finished. And he's not really a superhero, but a wannabe superhero. Now, if some of you are Batman aficionado, please don't take offense. It's only fiction, okay? But let's look at the difference at Superman. Superman dresses up like a normal human being, but he's super. His inherent nature is super. But he has regular clothes, glasses, everything. Like Superman doesn't need glasses, but it's a disguise, an appearance body. But his nature is one of super mundane abilities, and he is always a Superman, even though he has other clothing on. He retains that nature. But what if Clark Kent, Superman's alter ego, forgot he was Superman? And he would be walking around wondering about things like, why didn't that car kill me when it hit me, or I feel pain when I hit my thumb with a hammer? He would be wondering about things, and he has does Superman ever stub his toe? It's interesting, but when we practice, we're practicing from this viewpoint that we want to be Superman. We want to have super skills. We want to do all of these things. So we practice in a way, reading a book, how to be Superman. And so we're turning the pages. Funny, I don't feel like Superman. I I don't think so, but maybe I can be Batman, but not Superman. The approach I want to come from is from here, even though I'm presenting this in a little bit of a humorous way. There's something to it in terms of the true reality, the true nature that I'm presenting. And that's that if we practice to become something, it's like as if we're just a common person trying to become a superhero. And but if we already are a superhero, all we have to do is accord with what a superhero does. Accord in this nature to be able to extend our senses, our intuitions, our compassion in a certain way. Unbridled compassion, limitless wisdom, the ability to perceive very deeply and very profoundly. You all have this. All of you have this ability. It's not something that you are trying to reach and get. But we approach it in this way, and we're trying to build these steps, these 7 factors of enlightenment to get to there, and we're there trying to check off the boxes as we do it. Sometimes these kinds of practices, whether we say the 37 factors of enlightenment, the 7 factors, the 5 precepts, the Eightfold Path, the 6 paramitas, all of these are guideposts, indications of what needs to be present to not become the superhero, not become a Buddha, but to recognize and accord with our own inherent Buddha nature. It's different. It's a different way of approaching it because we're not trying to do something to get somewhere, to transcend. As I mentioned, I think the last time we talked way back when, it is not like a caterpillar turning into a cocoon and then coming out metamorphized as a butterfly. It is just this mind already manifests Buddha nature. We just forgot about it. We just forgot our nature. We forgot our let's say cosmic DNA. This DNA that goes way beyond even the cosmos. Our nature, our true nature, is just mind. So when we start this way, then we review these 7 factors of enlightenment in a little bit different way than we see them if we're approaching it, let's say, from a Theravadan viewpoint, or some practices in Mahayana that are subscribing and saying these are our steps to enlightenment. It doesn't negate them one iota. In fact, it amplifies these 7 factors. It amplifies them in a way that they're not steps that we jump from one to the next, to the next, to the next, but they all have to be there at one time. They all have to be in balance. And as we will see a little bit later on, there is mindfulness, which is, let's say, at the hub of the 6 others. And this mindfulness is the mindfulness of mind, just mind. And again, when we talk about mind, we're not talking about our consciousness. Consciousness appears in mind. But mind really shouldn't even be called mind because people think it's appearing between your 2 ears. It isn't in this way. Your 2 ears appear in mind, whether they're inside or outside, mind knows. Mind does not have a locale. It does not have a form to it. It is what creates the impressions of locale and form, but it cannot be defined by what it creates. Or we could say who it creates, because when we look at who it creates, who is there that can define mind? It's not possible, because that which is created cannot define what created it. That would make it 2 minds, 3 million, 3 billion minds to infinity. It isn't in this way. Just mind. When we begin to look at the 7 factors of enlightenment in this way, then it becomes something a little bit more understandable, a little bit more manageable. It's understood by realizing that we cannot understand it in words and phrases, that little by little, in according with mind self-reveals its self-nature. So with this kind of a preface to it, I can now talk about this without compromising the integrity of right view, because this is very, very important. If we don't do that, then we're taking steps back. And I was going through and read many different articles on the 7 factors of awakening, and I found one that I wanted to go through, and because I may differentiate with it, I'm not going to identify the source of it, but I want to read some things from it, because it does appear to be from, let's say, a Theravadan viewpoint. But I wanted to say whatever's there that makes sense, and then put the right view tweak on it to see how we can gain further insight into it. And it starts and says, in our tradition, awakening is not an accident or a mystical experience that appears spontaneously to open an untrained heart. It is, everything is pratika samappada, causes and conditions never fail, and pratika samappada is not other than mind. So we start right from the very beginning that everything is created by mind. This is our starting point. Awakening or maturing of insight into life-changing wisdom is a result of cultivation. Just as the hindrances are very real inner qualities that make calm and clarity difficult, there are positive qualities that are necessary for calm and clarity to be reliable supports for insight. And here, this is not bad, except I would say there's neither an inside or an outside to this. Anything that's phenomenal cannot have an inside or outside to it, because it all appears in mind, whether we think it's in between our 2 ears or outside of our 2 ears. All of that appears in mind. So we cannot define mind by our inside and our outside. This takes 2 steps back in our practice. One of the most important teachings on the positive qualities to cultivate our practice is the 7 factors of awakening. And here I like this because they call it sometimes 7 factors of enlightenment or 7 factors of awakening. Awakening is a closer to this, as if we say there's an enlightenment, who in fact is going to be enlightened. Enlightenment, even if through the practice there is an enlightenment, it is only the enlightenment that just this mind is the Buddha. There's no individual, independent self or soul. It's just mind. We don't bring, and even though they'll talk about the names of different Buddhas, in fact, none of the Buddhas, infinite light Buddha or whatever other Buddhas, is no different than Virachana or primordial Buddhas that from everything comes from. It is just in this way, it's conventional speak that we refer to Buddhas in this way, because it's difficult for us to understand that. But in order to see the vast potentiality of mind, then we list names of Buddhas so that people can see the vastness of Buddha nature. As important as diminishing the hindrances is equally important to develop and nurture these beautiful qualities. They are the heart of the Buddhist positive psychology. As they grow, they bear nourishing fruit throughout our practice and life. And again, this is written from the viewpoint of I, me, mine, rather than saying that these are points of view that enable us to come to a realization that just this mind is a Buddha, and that apart from the Buddha mind, there is no separate mind, there's no separate anything. But when we do it in this way, where it's like we're nurturing this, this little Buddha that we're going to do and pull it out of our womb, it isn't in this way. We are pulled out of the womb of the Tathagata, not the other way around. We cannot deliver the Buddha. The Buddha is already there. We have to understand right view, how mind works. When we do this, then we understand that these 7 factors that we're going to talk about are all the inherent nature of the Buddha. We don't need to name them or number them or anything, but we do that for the sake of showing how they operate. Now, to those subscribing to become a Buddha, then this is a path that's followed until one follows the path long enough to realize there is no becoming of the Buddha. How can you become what you already are? But then who are you? You're not other than the Buddha nature, that which thinks is the Buddha. It isn't that the thoughts themselves are reality, but that which enables the senses to contemplate is already Buddha mind. We don't have to get that. It comes prepackaged. When you come out of the womb, how could you not have the same DNA as your mother? It's not like you have something and your mom gives birth to a rhinoceros. Of course it's not. It's going to be, because cause and condition never fail. You're going to come out in this way, resembling or being the same nature as your mother. This is wisdom. And this wisdom is your mother, in accordance to the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra, the Asta Sutra. This is your mother, is this wisdom. So we have to look at things in this way. Then we begin to understand what we're doing with these 7 factors. It's different. It's absolutely wonderful. And again, this is not negating the 7 factors at all. It's illuminating them so that you see things very, very clearly. So these 7 factors in, I think it's Pali, it's Bojjhanga. Is that how you say it, Santha?
Yes, Bojjhanga means just factors of awakening.
Yes.
Or like the body of awakening.
Yeah.
Or the parts of awakening.
So I'm pretty close to the pronunciation of it. So in any case, it's something I just came back from Estonia, and that's the most challenging language. It's related more to the Finns and Swedes than any Slavic one, and I was at a loss to try to be able to pronunciate the stuff there. I thought Sanskrit and Pali was hard, but that's even harder. But in any case, the first factor is sati, and it's mindfulness. And again, when we look at mindfulness, mindfulness has become a a term that's been degraded in its importance. It's kind of like the term metta that I kind of my pet peeve, where people are signing things going, I will see you next week, metta Gilbert, and it just kind of becomes a salutation rather than the sincerity of the word metta itself. Although I have to admit that I signed my post as sincerely Gilbert, because that's my reminder to myself that I have to be sincere. So it's a practicing one. But this idea of mindfulness is very, very important, because it is right view. Essentially, mindfulness is that how things work. It is from the orientation of mind itself, not from something that we're aspiring to become, but we're using mind as it is intended to be, as it is, where it will only produce positive karma until such time as even positive karma is not necessary to produce. And working towards a pure land on earth, and until such time is that there's no necessity to call anything a pure land, because it's just simply in accord with mind, and there'll be a self-absorption of just a Buddha land at that point. The idea of it being mindful will become irrelevant. It is just simply in accordance with its own nature. This is very important that we start in this way, because this is right view. If we maintain this mind of mindfulness, then everything will fit together, whether it's the 7 factors or the 37 factors or the paramitas or Eightfold Path. All of it will revolve around the mindfulness. As Shifu used to say, all dharmas revolve around the mind. And here, mindfulness is just simply how mind works. It is the understanding, not in words and phrases, but in the intuitive sense that everything returns to mind. Even when we say it returns to the one, even the one returns to this mind. When we begin here, we already have it. If we branch out from there, then it's simply an amplification of this mindfulness that's innate in mind, intrinsic in mind. It's something that is not added to mind. It is what the refinedness of the Mahayana practice led to Buddha nature. It is the Buddha nature. When the mind is in accord with the Buddha nature, then it will naturally be in accord with the other 6 factors. You see, there's a difference. Instead of trying to reach up to try to get to mind has these there, and the other 6 factors are contained in mind, because it is the nature of mind, not discretely individual ones where we have to say, okay, these 6 slices of this pie have to all be put in there neatly and in balance. They're already there. We just have to maintain mindfulness. If we maintain mindfulness, we don't need to use the 6 factors. But the 6 factors are those, so let's talk about them. So I'm going to go and list them for you, and then we'll go back and talk about them. And again, for me to even talk about this in a very short time period is doing a great disservice to it, because just simply talking about mindfulness could take several classes alone, much less any of the others. But what I wanted to do is kind of string these together for you so you get an idea of what they're doing in the historical context of presenting them and in the context of right view and Buddha nature, how they all fit together. So if you can put up that template for me, please, Santha. I'm kind of giving you a little bit of help here. So what we have here is they're saying balancing enlightenment factors and their hindrances. So over to the left are the 7 factors of enlightenment, and to the right are the hindrances on there, and they have balancing factor, which is interesting because that's the hub that Master Sheng was talking about, is this hub that everything revolves around. But if you have a tire and you put a new tire on your car, they don't just put a new tire on your car, they have to put it through a machine that has a scope that checks the balance to see if it's perfectly in balance so it doesn't wobble and become unstable. So these 6 factors that are there are done in a way in which they balance the practice. And so in these, they're broken up into 2 categories, where some of it revolves around what they call the state of mind, but it's just the nature of the mind to me, not states of mind. And to me, it kind of is something I always correct about mental states. Because when we say mental states, then it presupposes that there's an individual that has these mental states. And so when we have these mental states, then we begin to think that these belong to us. For instance, there was a story of a Chan master, and the student came up to him and said, please, help me, because my mental state's not good. I'm angry all the time. And the master said, really? He says, yes, I always get angry. And he said, well, show me your anger. And so when he couldn't show him the anger, he says, how could I be mad at you? You're my master, you're my shifu. I cannot be mad at you. And he says, if you cannot bring it up on a moment's notice, then it's not really your mental state. It's not you. It's just arising in you, but it doesn't belong to you. And so, because the you doesn't exist there, but it's just arising because of causes and conditions. This is different. So when we're looking at these, we have to begin to go back to the mindfulness, back to the hub, always bringing it, returning it back to mind. And in that, then it's self-balancing, rather than trying to crank up the power on one of these other ones. It's better just naturally returning the mind to self-balance. So it's not that we have to put more and more and more, but we are mindful of mind itself, bringing it back to mindfulness. We know that these mental states really are illusory. So that clarification in and of itself will balance the practice. So investigation is, and I'm just going to go through these very briefly because I'll go in more detail in a moment, is looking into things, looking at how mind works. This is important for us to do that, to see how does this come to be? Why did I get a ticket? Well, maybe you were traveling 85 miles an hour, in a 35-mile-per-hour zone. There's no mystery. You're going to get a ticket sooner or later. So it happens. So we understand that. And so causes and conditions never fail. But everything that we do is in this way. And again, I'm just taking something very exaggerated, right, rather than concentrating on something that you might self-identify with and take offense to. The energy is very important. This is virya, and the energy is the ability to maintain the mind in a restful state, in a mindfulness. rather than letting the center stage of mind go to some kind of a habitual pattern that blocks the mindfulness. Mindfulness does not leave there, it is just simply obstructed by these habitual patterns. The mindfulness is there, but when you appear, then you obscure this nature of the mind, this inherent nature of the mind. So this energy that we have is very, very important. It is the key to a proper practice of meditation. It is a key to the proper wakefulness in anything. This idea of wakefulness is very important. Have you ever gotten up in the morning and they say, well, you're half awake, and you bump into things because you're only half awake? Half of you is walking, but you're like a chicken with your head cut off, bumping into things. And your head's still on the pillow, sleeping. You have to have a wakefulness in everything that you do. You can't just keep bumping into things in your life. You bump into this, say this, do this, speak this, without being wakeful about what is actually occurring. So the energy has to be there to bring the mindfulness to front and center, to then determine that that's the default. The default in mind is mindfulness, is this use of the mind in a proper way, not allowing it to succumb to desires, aversions, vexations, greed, hatred, ignorance. All of those things are on the other side. So we don't use it. And if you see in this energy over to the right side, they say to be used when experiencing sloth and torpor, to regain mindfulness. And again, it is, we are applying it in a proper amount to maintain the balance. When we're doing it to try to balance it from the outside, instead of balancing and returning to the hub where everything will be balanced here, we try to adjust it over here, but it's not easy to adjust it. The slight adjustments here will produce a smooth here. We only have to move a little bit here to make this stop wobbling. But if we do this, we may overcorrect. But we just keep coming back to mind, and it will be self-balancing. So in our way, when we understand how mind works, we don't have to be cranking to try to bring the mind to mind. It's already there. We don't have to do that. So when we understand how these work, then it's easier for us to know how to balance everything, because it's naturally balanced. So all we have to do is, if we have sloth and torpor, just wake up, and it'll naturally balance. We don't have to overcorrect it to try to do that. We just balance it naturally, and it will be that way, because it's always in balance. It is the idea of clinging to something that isn't mind itself, isn't the non-arising mind, that causes the imbalance. The non-arising mind is always in balance. When we understand that, then this is right view. So we just have to back off of it. We come back to mindfulness, rest the mind there, and then it will be self-adjusting. So then the other one is this joy or rapture. This is, they call PT, and PT is something that is part of the jhanas, and we'll talk a little bit about them as well. But this joy is that, hey, this really works. Have you ever sat in meditation? You really had a really good session of meditation, and you get excited. You have a joy for this because it really works. And so the Buddha said that if one experiences this joy or or rapture, one should not consider that uh, uh, sensation of this joy or rapture to be something that is a negative thing to cling on to, like an attachment. To a certain extent, that's correct. So long as one doesn't attach to the joy or rapture in a way that it is uh, becomes a negative one. I remember once going to a retreat, and before the retreat, I had caught Master Sheng coming up the stairs, and I stopped him, and I told him, because I was anticipating the retreat, and I said, Shifu, I just want to tell you that I I I'm very happy to be here, and I have a joy to be here. And he just looked at me, and he kind of looks at me, and in this looking, he's gazing into my mind, and he just goes, yes, yes, and he goes, this is the way. And so I was very happy with this. And then I was walking away, and then he called me and says, Gilbert. And so I turned around, and he says, but don't be too joyful. So don't cling to it. And it was a very important lesson, a really, really important lesson, because his lesson was that from the mindfulness of mind itself, going, just let it naturally balance. That's important. It is important that we don't get too joyful. We just understand that this is a natural result of when one practices, that there is a joy there. But I mean, if you look onto it and say, what's wrong with Gilbert? Oh, he's in rapture right now. No, that's not quite right. When we are in non-conceptual wakefulness, we should not be clinging to anything conceptual like that. But it is okay to understand that this aspect of the practice is one that that matches some of the other factors that are there, and what I call in the elements that need to be there for any meditation is a sublimeness. There's a sublimeness that one has that isn't a mental state. It's simply a recognition in mind, in non-conceptual wakefulness, that this mind needs not anything. It is just the way it is. And that is why it's reflected on the Buddha and Bodhisattva statues. And, Professor Pond, he would understand this very well. How the Buddha and Bodhisattva statues, there's a suggestion of a smile, a calmness to the face. It's just very subtle. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't want anything. It is this that is a true joy and rapture. And it understands that irregardless of what happens, birth or death, whatever things happen, injuries, sickness, the mind understands all of that. It sees through those things, but it doesn't interfere with this joy, this inner calmness that's inherent in the Buddha mind. So then we get to relaxation, and here let's go to the negative ones first. It's to be used when experiencing restlessness or worry, to regain mindfulness. And it is not that we use it like an aspirin or a muscle relaxant or a painkiller. or anything like that, it isn't to be used when experiencing anything. It is just the way it is. When we do it that way, it's like we're trying to do that, and maybe we want to season something. Have you ever seasoned anything and added too much spice to it? You know, making some dish that you thought is to your liking, but it's extremely hot or peppery. You know, you added too much. So it isn't in this way. We use the mindfulness as the balancing factor to use in the middle way to be mindful as to when we cook. We have to be careful. Don't add too much. Anybody that's a good cook knows you don't put all the salt in at one time. You put in part of it and then you add a little at a time so you don't oversalt the dish. It is in this way that we understand sometimes causing conditions or the products themselves will have salt. And so you can oversalt the dish. So we don't do it in this way. We use the mindfulness to balance, not the opposite way. This is not right view. You see the difference? When we have right view, when we are working from the middle way, mindfulness balances the others. They don't balance mindfulness. You already have mindfulness. So you use it in the proper way. Mindfulness is don't add too much salt, unless you want to have to water it down, to do that, but you may mess everything up. If you're mindfulness, then the other things will naturally be balanced. This is right view. This is right view. You operating on the other 6 factors. It's wonderful. You have a joy from that. There's an energy that wants to share this with others. An investigation is how to do that. A relaxation in the present moment. And a concentration. What's a concentration? Simply resting in the present moment. This is how we do it. We just concentrating, the right concentration. The relaxation is relaxing the body. When I talk to you now, my body is very supple. It's not tense. I'm not gripping anything or worrying or anything. It's just simply staying upright, as balanced as it can, in order just to keep it stable as I'm speaking to you. It's just this way. So the body is at rest. Everything's at rest except for the mouth moving up and down. But even that is at rest. In this way, all that of the function that needs to be used is simply used, but not in a tense way or a mumbling way or anything. It's trying to be as precise as possible. This is called equanimity. So upeka is actually represents the 4th jhana or states of consciousness, and again, I'm doing a disservice to the jhanas by referring to it in this way, but it is the state of equipoise. Equipoise is not what we do to get to mindfulness. Equipoise is a reflection of mindfulness. When the mind is very, very calm, very concentrated, all of these things, then it's in a state of equipoise. It's representing what mind is, not something that we have to add to it to make mindfulness. Mindfulness is already there. You just have to understand that. When you go to the cushion to meditate, you're mindful. So when you're mindful, all that happens is that the mind is just in a non-conceptual wakefulness. So being in a non-conceptual wakefulness, it sees things as they are. It's clear. It uses the right energy. It doesn't have to reach out to grab something or to swat something away. In that moment of mindfulness, by its own nature, it is investigating what is appearing in mind. It is aware of it. And because of this, the mind is in a sublime state. It's relaxed. The mind is concentrated. The right concentration, it doesn't have to look at things like so hard. It just is concentrated, but in a correct way, in an appropriate way. It doesn't need to add stress to anything. It just simply is concentrated. That's why they always represent like this. You just hold your method. You hold life this way, very light. No matter what happens, one understands whether it's birth or death, it is just this way. All of these appearances, phenomenally coming and going, they're just coming and going. We understand that it's natural. Birth will happen, death will happen, sickness will happen. All of these things, they're just perfectly balanced by mind. And so when we see it in this way, that is opika, a state of equipoise, which is an inherent nature in mind, the center hub. So you see, rather than trying to add more, like you're some kind of a person that has these different dials to dial in. Okay, dial in some more energy here, or dial in investigation. No, we understand. We just bring it back to mindfulness and let that mindfulness balance out the others. It's the right view, the right way to practice, not trying to add more like an engineer on a train adding more coal into concentration to try to do that, because it's very difficult. You may add too much coal. And so you're constantly adding, subtracting, rather than just understanding it's originally this way. So all you have to do is resonate this way, and the relaxation, concentration, equanimity will naturally be produced in the right way, the right energy, right investigation. The sublimeness is also there. So it's a different way of doing it. These 7 factors are very similar to what I say that needs to be there for a proper meditation, which is an awareness of the mind. And this awareness is that which is from investigation, and the concentration of maintaining this awareness in the mind, and then this continuous practice, which is concentration. So the concentration has to be continuous. It holds like this, but it doesn't go like this. It holds it and holds it, but it doesn't have to hold it too tight there. The equanimity is just simply the mind naturally resting in the present moment. When it naturally rests, it just rests. It has a joy there, the sublime state, which is in there. The concentration's holding the method. Relaxation, relax the body, relax the mind. So energy is the continuousness of this. And so you see all of these elements that I emphasize in terms of proper state of practice are very, very similar to the 7 factors of enlightenment. But what I wanted to do is it, rather than it being like this, turning it right way and seeing it is just in this way that we practice. It changes things because you're starting from the fact that just this mind is the Buddha mind. You don't have to manufacture it. It's foolhardy to do that. You don't have to try to wrap yourself up like a cocoon, hopefully that you'll come out as a butterfly. Maybe you come out and you go, my God, I came out as a mosquito. How the heck did that happen? No, because you didn't do it quite in the right way. Cause and condition never fail. But it isn't in this way. Nevertheless, the mosquito still has a Buddha nature. Now, some of you will probably differ with that if you're sitting outside on a hot August day or night, excuse me, but they also have a Buddha nature. So it is in this way that we look at it. And again, I'm running through these very, very quickly, and it wasn't my purpose to go through and talk about them in great detail as much as giving you a way of using right view to practice and how to use these, let's say, the 37 factors of enlightenment, the Eightfold Path, the six paramitas, the precepts, everything. When we apply it in the way that you already have this, and all you're doing is demonstrating it. And again, this mindfulness, what they put in the center that says we need to add a little bit more relaxation, a little bit more concentration. No, we add and return to mindfulness. Mindfulness on its own will allow it to find its true plumb, its true balance there, not the other way around. Because when you're trying to balance those, you're balancing phenomena to try to affect mind rather than seeing mind is the balancing nature. How is it balancing nature? That's why they say causes and conditions never fail. Why? If you take something from somebody, you have to pay back. And even if we say you, it's not really a you. It's just mind will have this own balancing. The only way that when we talk about pratika samuppada that it works is operating on the assumption that everything is mind. Everything is created by mind. It cannot be a separate sentient being, soul, or person. Otherwise, it would not be connected to all of it. But because it's connected to all of it, because it is a projection in mind, it is the reason why mindfulness can work to balance out what needs to be there, rather than a projection producing projections in this way. But none of those projections can ever project mind. They are a projection on mind, but they are not the projector. Okay, so let me got a little bit more time here. I'll talk about a little bit of mindfulness, where it says mindfulness, the balancing factor. Mindfulness is always skillful. So mindfulness is mindfulness, and it's not skillful. It's just mind. We see it as that from the point of view of a sentient being trying to maintain mind. But you see, that's the problem. How can a sentient being maintain mind? If we get out of the way, then mind, by its own nature, will reflect what appears to be skillfulness, but which is really its own true nature. Whatever experience, energy, emotional state we find ourselves in, already I think that this is a problem, because it's saying we find ourselves in, and he's now is including me as a partner in crime by calling me a we. Clearly understanding what's happening and making wise choices based on awareness is a good practice. Getting out of the way of mind and allowing mind to just simply manifest without attachment is wisdom. We do not create the wisdom. Mind, the mother of all things, is the wisdom. Mindfulness is thus a balancing factor in our life. And again, I take issue with that and say, if you're looking at it like that way, you'll just keep repeating and repeating until you realize there is no ego, personality, life, or being, and is itself somewhat calming. Mind is mind. It doesn't have a mental state of calmness. It is its inherent nature. So who wrote this really did not have a clear grasp on the illumination of the mind. And it says, meditation trains us to make mindful, loving awareness our default. And the hour there is just simply get rid of the hour and just say, mind itself in its own nature is the true mind, rather than trying to say that that we have to subscribe to doing it. In this way, it might be good because it's trying to say get out of the way, have the ego get out of the way, and so I would agree with that. But it's not our default. It is that the nature of mind itself is the intuitive wisdom. Mindfulness is also a necessary support for discernment needed in the practice to know which other factors to lean on at any moment. Again, it isn't a cogitation. Mind does not operate by cogitation, where you're there and you're trying to balance yourself on a wheel. Mind is the wheel, the unbalanced, the balance, the hub, everything. And when you feel in this way, of course you're going to have ups and downs, and you're going to try to steer it, but you'll be steering it like a fireman on those very big fire trucks that's trying to steer the rear end of it. And good luck if you can steer the front wheels from the rear wheels where you're steering. It's not going to work. The problem is just because there's an ignorance there that one doesn't see that mind itself can and its own discernment, not your discernment of mind or good mind and bad mind, but mind's own discernment, its inherent nature. We have to get out of the way of it. We don't pick and choose. There's not a discernment from an ego, personality, life, or being. It is mind's own inherent discernment that operates. Without clearly understanding what's happening, we cannot know what choices to make in the flow of our practice. And precisely, if you don't know, who is steering, how it's being steered, and that you are not the conductor, you're going to make mistakes. But it isn't as they're presenting it, where they're thinking that you're in control. You're not in control. It isn't in that way. Mind is in control, but that mind is separate and apart from an ego or a sense of a being. Mindfulness sees our states as they unfold. This I would agree, because it is mindfulness, the mind itself sees the so-called our states. That is the non-arising mind that sees the arising mind as they unfold and recognizes them. Yes, that's true. But it's mind that sees it, remembers the instructions, and thus helps us to know whether we would be better served by energizing or calming qualities. No, it naturally is self-leveling. We get in the way of it, and we can add too much or too little, or not be able to keep it there. But mind itself does that without any stress or strain. Mind left to its own nature is resting, irregardless of whether it's engaged in a function or no function. It simply rests. This is what Master Sheng really ingrained in us, and people only understood the basic of him saying, rest in the present moment. You always are resting, and people thought they were resting their mind. No, the mind is resting, not attaching to anything, and as a result of it, all of these other factors of enlightenment are just a demonstration of mind itself, not something to aspire to. It is already represented in this way. So again, I ran out of time. I had another probably 5 hours worth of lecture that I could have brought to you, but I just wanted to give you a feel for it, not an idea of going over it in great detail, but get a feel for how mind works and how it, when we apply it to all of these other list of proper practices, it works from the top down, not from trying to go up to it. When we do it that way, this is the shortcut. So hopefully you get the point, and you can go and kind of revisit all these paramitas and stuff, and you'll be very surprised how it fits. Okay, that's it for today. I will take some questions. No questions. Again, Sam must be gone. Was there something that you, let's see, Shloka, one of you has a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bert. Thank you for the lecture. So I actually read the same article that you were reading from before class, and in part, he says that all of these 7 factors are sequential, but from today, I understand that that is not how it is, and that's not the case because, yeah, that's not how it is. And so if we find ourselves to be imbalanced or any of the hindrances are appearing, then what we do is return to mindfulness of the mind itself. And is the way to do that, could a way to do that be reminding ourselves of the fact of reminding ourselves that everything is a dream, including this body, everything is interconnected, and everything is created by the mind? And does that can that help come back to mindfulness with the approach of right view?
Yes, I would say that that's a good way to say it. The only thing I would say is just remind mind, don't remind yourself. And so you take the self out of the equation, and begin to assume that you're Superman or Superwoman, and operate from there. Okay, otherwise you're restricting your potential. So when you just simply see things as mind, we don't identify with a separate ego or reality. Of course, I'm Gilbert. If I travel, it's Gilbert that shows up. Mine can't show up there without hauling this red meatball with it. But I don't identify that red meatball with the one that is presenting the Dharma. It is just in this world the means of transport. No, but on the other hand, if I want to communicate with people, or they want to communicate with me, no, I don't necessarily always need the body to do that. And that is the other aspect when one understands how mind works. It is not a super skill power or anything of Gilbert. It is just how mind works. So the more we begin to do it in this way, we begin to start self-correcting. And so that's good. I'm glad that you read the article, because now you can kind of see the difference in the orientation. One of them is how to become Superman, and the other one's saying you're either Superman or you're not. You can only be Batman. You can never be Superman, just simply wishing you can become Superman. And so that's the difference. But the good news is that you're all Superman or Superwoman. There's nothing lacking in any of you in this way. So all you have to do is just begin to acting in accordance with that. If a long time ago, there was a thing where the people would say, present a scenario, of somebody that's lying or something, and say, what would Jesus do? To go, well, Jesus is not going to lie, right? So how would the Buddha approach something? And so when we see it in this way, we don't act like a Buddha, we demonstrate these qualities. It's a very subtle change of turning the mind's eye inward, but it makes a big difference in terms of how we practice, because there is this very, very subtle change in looking at things from non-conceptual wakefulness versus somebody that's trying to turn the wheel from the back, and not be able to make the proper adjustments. But that's what's happening when you're following the seven factors in this way. When you follow the seven factors in this mindfulness, it's very easy because that hub turns everything else. That's why Shivu said all the spokes are connected to the hub. So yeah, you're on the right way in terms of doing it that way. Again, it's very subtle. You're not going to find it in books, what I'm saying to you now, other than what the sutras say and the treatises say. But applying it retroactively is a little bit different. But they do imply that. Okay. Any other questions? You're going to let me off easy today? Everybody had so many questions when I was gone. I'm back now. Okay, go ahead, Arvind.
Hello, Master. Thank you for the lecture today.
See
My
you later.
question,
Go ahead.
I hope I'm audible. My question is for that subtle change in the way we see things that you just mentioned. How does, I mean, as starting practitioners, when you think that you want to be Batman, how does faith in mind or faith in practice come into play in changing that perception to I am already Superman? In the context of, is faith something that even in practice we need to actively work on, or is it something that arises out of demonstrating or being in accordance with mind as frequently as possible to the extent we can, sincerely?
Okay. I missed a little bit of what the question was.
Oh, I just asked, is faith in this ability to have that slight change in perception, is that something that in practice we really try to do directly to develop that faith, or is faith something that just develops organically out of demonstrating in accordance with mind in day-to-day practice?
Okay, I think I understand your question now. We work on what's called non-conceptual wakefulness, meaning that the mind is aware and well-oriented as to time and space, where it's at. And so I'm aware that I'm here, aware that in California, it's a Monday, in other parts of the world, it's already Tuesday morning. It's oriented to many different things, who is here. And in terms of doing that, how to respond, the mind naturally responds while not clinging. It is not a different mind, Arvind, that one uses. It is the very mind that we use, but it doesn't carry with it attachments. So this non-conceptual wakefulness is mind enabling to respond to you in the best way possible based on what information and realizations and skill sets that are been practiced to respond to you in a way, but without the idea of a notion of Gilbert is responding to you. It is just simply responding. So it's natural. It's the natural way that things are. If the Buddha thought he was Prince Siddhartha, no, he would never get anywhere. but it was his questioning that he was not Prince Siddhartha that enabled him to become the Buddha without ever thinking that he's the Buddha. It was just simply ask me a question and I'll respond. This is Chan. So in anything that we do, we respond with what needs to be there in a mind that is in a state of, I hate to say state, but is reflecting equipoise and equanimity and non-discriminating in any way as to what it is doing. It just simply is responding in accordance with causes and conditions. So what I respond to you may be different, or it may be something collectively that all benefit from. All of these things are being processed simultaneously, not sequentially by mind in its own nature. This is the non-conceptual wakefulness, which operates at a whole different speed than from a regular attaching mind. But it is in this way that it functions. And it is possible. It is not something that Arvind has to try to say, I've got to put the Superman costume on. It doesn't work that way. Again, that's Batman kind of way of looking at it, where when you just naturally respond in accordance with causes and conditions. So the mind is in harmony with causes and conditions, because causes and conditions are not different than the mind. Then it can function in this way that's non-conceptual and provide an appropriate answer for you. No, that takes time, Arvind. That takes, first one has to understand it, and then one has to begin to accord with it. And little by little, it will come. But the thing is, even though I say it takes time, it's vastly superior than to try to build the stairway to heaven. Okay, when one gets to the stairway to heaven and starts banging on the sky, and they're going, they can't get past the sky, then they begin to look for other solutions. By then, most of their obstructions have been dropped off, so they'll recognize already what I'm saying. This is what Hui Ning was propounding in his subitism, or sudden illumination of the mind, is that it's sudden, but it takes time to do it, but it's a lot shorter than going the other way. Okay, so hopefully that'll help you. Just get a feel for it. This is a new language, and I know you've studied a lot, but this is just a little bit, it's like you've been studying one language, now you're switching to another, but what you've done before will still help you. It's still money in the bank, and it will help you be able to orient this in the right way. Okay. Okay. You guys are back for another one? Oh, okay. A 2-for-1.
Yeah.
It's $5 for the second question. All right, go ahead.
Shloka's Zoom, so she'll cover me. So we got back from this 2-day retreat with Venerable Goyan, and I think at the Virginia retreat, when you told me to take my practice off the cushion, that was like such an important thing to hear, because it just totally changed my orientation, that the whole retreat is practice, not just when you're sitting on the cushion. And so I took that perspective to Lansing this weekend, and I've just kind of been reflecting on what sort of pulls me out of the kind of mindfulness that you cultivate when you're in an environment where everything is about mindfulness, and then you come back to a different environment and it feels like you can get pulled out of that. And I think that one of the things that I found challenging is with the retreat and with work practice and with mindful eating, this stuff sort of translates when I return home. But the thing that I find really challenging is like having conversations with people in a way that's mindful. It feels like that sort of sparks this like cognizing within me and forces me out of this mindfulness. And I haven't quite figured out, especially because the retreats are silent. There's no, explicit practice of mindful conversation at retreats. And so this is kind of a question that's been brewing, and I didn't really realize that it was a question about mindfulness, but I think that it's connected, and I'm just kind of curious how you converse mindfully.
When I'm conversing with you, I'm also aware of everybody that's on in the panels that's visually there, who's moving forward, who's moving back, what people are doing. It doesn't interfere at all with me listening to what you're doing or what you're speaking about. It is a mindfulness because it's not attaching, it's in a state of equipoise. And so it is aware of the entire environment. If a car goes by, I'm aware of it, different things that happen. My dog passes by, I'm aware, but it doesn't interfere with the function of the mind, because the mind, it is as if it has multiple windows opening, and all operating simultaneously. Whereas when we're using the ego, it's binary. It has to shift. So if I want to see what somebody is doing or why they're moving around, I'd have to look at them like this and stop talking. But you see, the mindfulness enables the mind to be aware of all of those things simultaneously and still communicate with you, because it's in a state of equipoise. So this is what you practice. You practice the state of awareness, and that's difficult, and it's difficult for people to say, "Oh, be mindful," without understanding that. That's why in my retreats I really emphasize practicing the state of awareness, and so that people can practice that and take it home with them and be able to be aware. And it's like processing data in different windows simultaneously, which are all connected, that enables you to have more information, more data that's being processed to come about with a proper response in any point, because you're in harmony with everything. When the mind has an ego, it's blind to all of the other conditions around it, and so it makes foolish choices sometimes. And so but when it's in a state of equanimity, and it is in this, also we say, a non-conceptual wakefulness, it is not tying itself to anything that's occurring, but is aware simultaneously to all those things that are happening. So it's truly a wonderful practice that you take off that cushion. The cushion is very easy because you can maintain a state of awareness in a Chan hall so easy because nothing's happening. But once you get out of that, then you're there and you're you can't follow it. But after the retreat in Estonia, no, I was talking to people, but I was totally aware of conversations that were happening around me that I was not a part of. And so when I finished with one person, I would go to them and then talk to them about what they'd been talking about. But the mind is capable of doing that. It's capable of having this awareness of those things. That just is, you practice with by maintaining a state of awareness around you, a non-discriminating state of awareness. And again, it is a practice that you have to develop. That I've been doing this for years, so my state of awareness has been is honed pretty good in terms of immediate vicinity and environment. But that's how you do it. But yeah, if you just go and you just say, "Oh, I'm mindful here," that's only half of the message that you need to get. So come on back to Michigan when I come, and I will present that part to you. All right. No problem. Okay, Wendy, yeah, you were there before. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I have a question about the too much salt. I usually put too much salt and pepper on everything. So you were saying rest mind and allow, just allow things to happen. People die and born. Just kind of accept that things happen naturally. But for me, I always think like a Batman try to be a Superman, usually not successfully. So so now I do the retreats. I usually okay, but now I developed this pattern of having high blood pressure. So I'm like now scared of going to retreats because so like it's supposed to get better, not kind of worse now. So
Well, it's kind of funny because when I go to the doctors, sometimes I'm in a rush to get to the doctor or whatever, and maybe traffic was bad, and I go in and they take my blood pressure, and then they go, "Oh, you're high," and I go, and then they come back later. I explain what was happening, and then they take it again, and it's generally 20 or 30 points lower than the first taking. And the only difference was is that when my I settle down and then I calm myself. When they take the second one, I'm just meditating and it drops the blood pressure. So your blood pressure should not go up in a retreat. That's because you are attaching to scattered thoughts. And those thoughts in turn will produce disturbances within your physical body, which cause you to accelerate your heart rate and create a problem with your blood pressure. So if you understand that, then you know that you need to rest. So in the coming to a retreat, again, come back to one of my retreats, and you'll feel different. You'll feel rested. And the retreats that I give, I just did one in Estonia, and the people were new to my methods, but within a week, their practice was very amazing, and they were sitting for 1 hour periods. They have an option at 30 minutes to take a break, but they're all sitting, and it's something that it's the proper guidance and understanding of that, and saying, why is your blood pressure going up? Maybe you're holding on to scattered thoughts. Maybe you're holding on to physical discomfort, which will also do that. But in due time, it should go down. So something's not quite right in your meditation practice that's causing that to happen. But with a well-knowing advisor, you can overcome that. So it should not be that way, Wendy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you try it again, like I say, and then if you learn the process correctly and understand the foundation of it, then you're going to be a lot calmer, and you won't be bothered that way. But sometimes it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sometimes people have, for instance, a tightness. One lady had a tightness in her chest, and so every time she meditated, she thought about that part. But wherever the mind goes, the chi will follow. Wherever the chi follows, then all of the muscles and everything will also follow. So she was self-creating a tension in her chest. So once I told her to drop her chi down to the lower dantian, then it all went away, because she was dropping it down and taking the pain off, because it's all created by the mind. So once she understands that, then the mind can uncreate it. So your blood pressure can also be uncreated. Okay?
Yeah.
You got it. You can do this. Okay? Anybody else? Got time for one more question. Nobody? Okay. I thought you were leaving, Letty. You're still here, but good to see you. All right. Well, I'm glad I'm back. I'm going to work on these kind of like ones until I leave. I'll be leaving again for Singapore and Australia. This is the summer, autumn, and winter of a very busy travel schedule. So I'll be in and out of here, but the people that are holding the fort down for me, Santham, Michael, Ian, and whoever else I can recruit in there to do it. They all have things that are worthwhile to pass on, and so you can trust them. I won't put somebody up here to speak to you unless they can pass the test. So this is something that works very well, and I'm very happy. And I travel with different people, and I'm very happy to travel with my senior students and have them represent and be the next wave of people to teach all over the world. My goal is to try to not just bring Buddhism, but Chan Buddhism, the right view, to be exposed throughout the world, because I really believe that it is an incredible discrete system that works well, especially if it's taught well, practiced well. The it will produce a Pure Land here on Earth. I truly believe that, and so I think you're right where you should be. So some of you, need to get out the door and into one of my retreats. If you can do that, you're welcome to go. You can go to Jinsan. I'm going to be giving a retreat there. I'm doing one in Chan Grove from Master Gobru's group, but I think that one is already has been filled in. If you're a Westerner, you can get into the Jinsong one, but once they open it up to the general one, last time they did that, it booked out in 9 minutes. So it's something that doesn't they picked up on me over there, and just a big waiting list. So in any case, see where you can pick me up. I'm going to be out in Michigan in the fall as well, and I'll be doing some West Coast appearances in San Francisco, and then probably in January I'll do one from the Thousand Buddha Temple group in the Redwoods by Big Sur, which is I'm looking forward to that one. So that's going to be a very good one as well. So anyway, there's plenty of places, and if not, just keep coming back here and listening to the Dharma. I think it's worthwhile, and it gives you a good perspective as to what Chan Buddhism is all about. So I will see you next week. I will be here. All right. Amitofo, you all take care.